let me talk about a meeting that's set to happen later this week, which is with President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska regarding the war in Ukraine. What would you like to see done at that meeting?
First of all, I'll say this is an extraordinary opportunity for President Trump to again assert strength on the world stage. It's incredible that we're getting these world leaders to meet, that Zelensky and Putin and Trump are going to meet on short notice. And
is President Zelensky confirmed?
Well, he may not be confirmed at this point, but the anticipation, the hope is that he would be there. But just the fact that that Putin would show up on American soil to meet with President Trump is an extraordinary feat, and it shows the strength of President Trump to actually engage in these conversations and to hopefully get us to a place where there is peace in Europe.
Do you feel as though, what do you feel can actually be accomplished in this meeting?
Well, you never can accomplish as much when you're not face-to-face. When you're face-to-face with somebody and having these direct discussions, you find out, and you can read a person, and President Trump's really good at that, reading the facial expressions of Putin, reading the language of Putin right there in the room, and working through some of these tough issues. When you're going through intermediaries or doing it by phone, you don't quite have that same ability to get to the end that you would if two major leaders sit down together, and possibly three sit down together and try to work it out.
There's been some discussion there's been discussion for a while that Ukraine, may be asked to cede territory to Russia. Do you feel as though that's something that should happen? Do you feel as though President Trump should advocate for that?
I think President Trump is advocating for peace. That's what he's advocating for. But he understands that Ukraine and Russia are ultimately going to be the parties that are going to have to agree to the terms of the deal. And if it gets us to a place where there is long-lasting peace in the region, then I think you're probably going to you're going to see Russia give up things that they don't want to give up, and you're going to see Ukraine give up things that they don't want to give up, and that may include ceding land. That's something that certainly is not something that I had hoped would be the resolution, ceding over land and territory that Russia and the United States and Ukraine all agreed in the Budapest Memorandum back in the early 90s was actually the property and the home of Ukraine. But if it gets us to a place of peace, and if it's something that Ukraine is willing to agree to and that Russia is willing to agree to, then certainly that would be a good outcome, I think, for all of Europe and all the world.
Let me ask you, in your opinion, what does peace in the region look like?
Well, it's an end of the direct conflict, but it's also an reaffirmation of the rights of these countries to coexist peacefully to one another, and then have some sort of, I think what you're going to have to see is some sort of defense agreement or some sort of support agreement to make sure that future aggression does not occur. Now, there's lots of moving parts, and when you're talking about an agreement with Russia, you're talking about economic issues, same with Ukraine, economic, diplomatic, military issues, and it's going to be interconnected with Iran and China and the rest of the world. There's so many moving parts that could actually be associated with an agreement that it's hard to say what is an absolute and what is not in this agreement, but you're not going to get there unless you can't get the leaders together to talk about this issue. And that's what President Trump has been able to do, is actually engage in conversations. President Biden was absent. He wouldn't engage in these conversations at all, and neither one of those leaders would respond to him because of the weakness he showed on the world stage.